Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today, I want to talk about my 9-part framework, which helps you understand and navigate your portfolio career. Now, this is essentially a career that you would have had anyway, but the difference is your mindset. It's about how you build it as opposed to just pursue it. Now, I've spoken about this framework before, but this has evolved in many different ways. So I'm going to be using my notes to support me with this. So the first thing is all centered around context. Context is where you are essentially getting to know yourself, you're understanding yourself, you're understanding who you are as a person. And that's a big question. Like, what is identity? Identity is what you prescribe yourself. And so really understanding who you are, which is broken down into your culture, which is broken down into your family background, which is broken down into what you believe, your values, all these different things help to shape the person you are today. And so once you understand this, you also want to put together your experiences and your expertise and all of these different things to help shape this sense of context, because all context is it allows you to give a sense of meaning and purpose. Moving on from there, we have this whole thing of, I guess we want to call it contract. And so contract is where you are basically in a role, in a job that pays you money. And this is the core way in which you make money. Now, there are different types of contracts that exist. I don't need to speak through all of them. Obviously, for those of you who watch my channel already, you know that I talk about inside and outside of IR35 contracts and independent consulting as a form of a contract. But there are many different types of contracts. And so it's understanding that regardless of what we do, okay, if we are getting paid to do some work, there is some sort of contractual basis for it. And so when we understand that actually employment works this way, then we start to think about things differently. It isn't just a binary 9 to 5 employment versus everything else. It is no, everything is a partisan by nature. There are different types of contracts that exist. And so if you understand the world of contracts, then you're in a position of strength, especially in the new world that we're working in today. So after contracts, what we have is cash. Now, of course, we've understood who we are in the world, you know, our context, all of that kind of stuff there. Also understanding the market conditions that we live in, what the world looks like, what the opportunities look like. So that's context. We know exactly what type of contract we're looking to do in order to make our money. Money is coming in. So the next thing is cash. So cash is really what money game do we want to play in order for us to thrive? That's essentially what it is. And so the money games will include things like savings, will include things like high interest savings accounts based on the market conditions, will include things like investing. Well, and investing can be broken up into many different types of investing. We've got obviously business investing, educational investing, so to speak. You've got, you know, paper investing or, you know, index funds and all that kind of stuff. Like you've got property investing. So there are different types of things. But the point here is to ensure that you're doing something on a consistent basis that enables you to grow in some way, shape or form, even if it's small. And so it's about developing the habits more so than anything else. But also the game also includes making sure that you have the right level of securities, okay? This could look like pensions. This could look like insurances. Maybe it's different for you. Maybe you're really sort of like money rich. And so actually you see things slightly differently. In the same vein, you also have to understand what your goals are here. And so this is why context at the beginning is really important. And the type of contract that you do is really important, because those two should have some sort of alignment in order for you to know what your money goals are. And so when you look at all of those three, okay, that's what I call the core three. The core three are the foundations to you excelling. Now, if you forget the other 6 or you don't do the other 6, that's perfectly fine. But the core three are your foundations when it comes to any sort of portfolio career. So now we've got the core. So that's the first thing. The second sort of like phase or step is the growth stage or growth phase. And so within the growth phase, there may be an individual who are like, okay, I've developed certain competencies within the game of my contract, within the game of my cash or whatever it may be. And so I want to actually start sharing my experiences. I actually want to start teaching this stuff. I actually want to start answering people's questions because actually I feel like an expert in this place. And even if I'm not an expert, I am 1 or 2 steps ahead of somebody who may be in a position that I was in before. And so you're providing content for the person that you were before or who may be interested. And so content really is about making sure that you understand what the key problems are of that individual, okay, which is something that you're solving already. You have a certain level of credibility, so to speak, in order for you to talk on that stuff. And so this comes down to years of experience or qualification or something big or bold that you've done, or even just experimenting, so to speak, and that you have something to say. There is some sort of like developing framework, so to speak, and you can be experimental with this, but you're using platforms to essentially highlight who you are. Okay. You may have I help statements or I am statements or, specific things that you've done, etc., etc. And so you post this stuff consistently on a platform. Video works for many people. I would say that's a great way to start. Not everyone's going to feel that way. Maybe for you, written word is better, but it is all going to coalesce in some way, shape, or form. In fact, it does. Most people just do all of them, especially in the light of AI. And so you find a platform and a way to do this. And I saw this on Instagram the other day, where they're saying that it's great if you can mix authenticity, lifestyle, education, and virality when it comes to your content. It's a nice little framer for you. If that works for you, great. Okay. But there are people who are naturally going to do more than others. So that's content. So you're posting the content out there with the aim to, again, get this whole know, like, and trust sort of like element of things. So people are attracted to you in some way, shape, or form. And this is where opportunities start to arise. And so you move from the content phase, which is about consistency and showing your competencies and experiences and stuff, to, I would say, the coach phase. Now, the coach phase, you've developed enough credibility or believability to the point where people are asking you for their help. Now, whether you are actually a coach or whether you are an advisor or a mentor or some sort of freelance consultant to the B2C community, maybe even B2B, you want to be able to be prepared to do this. And so with the coaching element side of things, this may be a simple link, maybe a Calendly link, a Google Meet link with the pro version, whatever it may be, in order for you to essentially provide some sort of service to a group of people that you've been helping through the content element side of things. And so they may be free consultations initially, they may be at a certain lower level, etc., etc. But eventually people are wanting your help. People are in the DMs. Okay. And so that's the coach element side of things. Moving on from coach, what ends up happening is you may start to develop some sort of community. Now, this could be more an apparent community where you have a paid community, a free community. It could be a Patreon. It could be a school community. It could be something you set up independently. This could typically be even your YouTube channel, whether this is free or paid. But there is this feeling of people know who you are. People like what you're about. You've got your true fans developing, whether it's 1,000 or not, it's hard to say, potentially at the beginning, at least anyway. But you are developing your 1,000 true fans or more. And so this is where consistency is key, meaning what you say is key, and developing that niche is key. Now, remember I spoke about the first 3 elements, part of that core phase or foundation stage. In this growth phase, it's very much dependent upon that core phase, because you can't really do much or talk about anything if you don't have any experiences to share. So I think Alex Hormozy talks about this. He talks about how you talk about, rather than, basically trying to get the person to do something or trying to sell something, you talk about what you've learned. I've done this, I've done that, X, Y, and Z, et cetera, or how you can do this, how you can do that, et cetera. So it's framing it slightly differently. Okay. So this is where these 3 elements, content, coaching, and community, form the growth phase, because again, you can start to grow a certain way and actually it could be quite lucrative. So now you've got those three different phases or stages. The final phases come down to these three different elements. So then you want to codify what you've learned. So codification is really big in this day and age. And all that really means is over the years that you've done stuff, okay, you would have learned how to do your contract really well, whatever that looks like. You would have learned yourself about yourself and all that kind of stuff there really well. You would have learned how to do content pretty well in some way, shape, or form. And content can be books, speaking, presentations. Presentations are really big, videos, written word, etc. It could be all of that stuff. But you would have done that really well. You would have learned the game of money really well because you started the cash game. So you can talk about all these different things, personal development and self, your job and your niche expertise, or whatever it is that you're doing from a contractual standpoint, the whole world of content, whatever that looks like specifically to you, and also the cash game. Like you're holistic by nature. Of course, your main thing becomes the contract element, because this is why people are drawn to you. Plus, they're drawn to who you are as a person. This is where the portfolio career comes into play, because you've been able to integrate into different places. But the point I'm making is the codification element of it means that you are developing frameworks, you are developing processes. So a very simple way to do that is to write down what you've learned step by step. Okay. So this is what codification looks like. And then you put that in a form of a book, maybe a course, maybe a micro SaaS product, maybe a service, whatever it may be. But this is where you're being a bit more entrepreneurial. Yes, the growth phase is somewhat entrepreneurial by nature, but it's transitional to a degree. This phase means that you are taking things a bit more seriously, and actually you have proprietary information, you have IP that you can essentially sell with confidence under your banner. So codification is a big thing. The next element you can talk to is the element of capacity. Okay. Now, capacity is really talking about, are you bringing on the right players on your team? Okay. This could be a virtual assistant. This could be a volunteer. This could be a co-founder. This could be an investor. This could be a mentor, coach, a therapist, whatever it may be. Who is forming your team to help leverage your time? Are you utilizing technology the right way? So the obvious one is artificial intelligence, generative AI, tools that integrate with voice and video and meetings and generation of products or content. Okay. How are you utilizing this stuff? Are you using the right tools for capturing information? Are you writing down the right systems? Whether this is SOPs collated together and or templates, different sort of softwares bolted on together through APIs or integrations, maybe automations in the background, agentic tools being used. Do you have the right infrastructure or workspaces? Are you using Google Workspace? Are you using Microsoft Teams? Are you using Slack, Notion, etc., etc.? What are you doing to create capacity to leverage things? And then the final boss, and there's many things after that, but I'm not at that stage yet, if I'm honest with you, is the CEO phase. The CEO phase is where things are working much more like clockwork. You have clear divisions, clear boundaries. Money is predictable, so to speak. It's making sense, and you have something that is actually sellable. Now, Daniel Priestley talks about having a lifestyle business or an actual business, so to speak. I don't know what he calls it, a scalable business, so to speak. But you can decide between the two, and depending on how you build it in terms of your teams and stuff, you can go to him to learn more about that. Will determine what you can do with it. But you want to be in a position where actually you've got leverage and you can be more of a bird's eye person. You can be the key person of influence, as Daniel Priestley talks about. And so that final phase of those three elements, that is known as your scaling phase, or what I like to call your learning phase. And the reason I call it learning is because in my day, I break this stuff up into core bits of my day. So in the beginning, I'm going to have a bit of elements of learning in there. In the middle of the day, I'm going to have my core elements. And at the end of the day, I'm going to have my growth elements. And that's how it's set up for me. It's easy for me to break up, etc., etc. Now, I'm going to do some future videos that break down each part even more so we can go in depth and talk about it with a bit more detail, so to speak. And actually, I might do a video talking about the routine of the core bucket, the growth bucket, and the learning bucket. So hopefully this was helpful. I'd love to know what was most useful for you in this video. So let me know below. If you want to see more videos centered around contracting, portfolio careers, consulting, as an independent consulting, then feel free to like and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.